Welcome back, everyone. Pal Ponder on Weather here. Welcome to Pal Ponder Ultra. We've got several atmospheric river events that's going to help feed a major snowstorm. So let's start off with the overall 500 millibar on the North American view. You can actually follow along above my head with the time and date. And let's look at the ridge of high pressure here. This area of red, that's an indication of some higher pressures and more calmer conditions across portions of Alaska and Greenland. That sets the stage for blocking and helps lower the pressures underneath. When that happens, you have a little bit more unsettled conditions, and this is going to be the start of a series of atmospheric river events I think is going to be unfolding kind of all week long in the next week. So if we walk you through time and take you through the rest of today into tomorrow time frame, you can see it traversing across our northern states up there into north central US, as well as into the upper Midwest. That pulls through portions of the Ohio Valley and dives down there into portions of the mid-Atlantic, as well as into the Northeast. Then we have yet another storm system that's trailing back behind that one, and that could be even the bigger of the two that brings heavier snowfall into the day on Sunday, going into Monday, as that jet stream really starts to deep, pulling down more colder air from Canada. And that this time it actually lowers in portions of, say, Illinois, portions of Indiana, back into Ohio. We'll start getting to the action of the snowfall, and even portions along the Northeast where we could have a bona fide snowstorm really start to unfold across those regions. And finally, behind that, I think it definitely cools down for the rest of us all the way down into the deep south. We take a look at the overall tropopause temperatures. You can actually kind of depict on where the colder air is. These deeper purples, that indicates that cold Arctic air plunging down from Canada down here into this initial atmospheric river for today. And if we move you through time, you can see we basically have two boundaries. We got the northern boundary. The northern side is where all the colder air is, and that's where the snow is going to be flying. Further south, we do have small hints of cooler air at times, but we got this pesky southwest jet, this subtropical jet that's going to be pulling back in by the time the weekend rolls around, and really rapidly warming up these temperatures across a good part of the Southwest and much of Texas here. That actually might bring some instability in the form of some severe weather into portions of the weekend time frame, as you can really start to definitely see where you basically got winter to the north and more or less spring or summer to the south as we get deeper into the weekend. But eventually going into the early part of next week, that trough does dip down pretty significantly, and it's going to bring the colder air with it as well. So some of these areas along into portions of the Tennessee Valley and even in the southeast could actually still experience a freeze. So if anybody did some late planting, they're definitely going to have to be covering up the plants in those regions. And beyond that, as we get into the middle of next week, I think those cooler conditions start to take over for pretty much all of us by then, as finally that colder air will start shifting further southbound, and most of you guys will actually start to experiencing those cooler than average conditions. Let's take a look at the overall pressure patterns, and you can actually see where we more or less have higher pressures. That's an indication of some of that Arctic air that's bundled up to the north, and you've got a little bit lower pressures. That's more of your unsettled conditions, and that's the start of that series of atmospheric rivers that are basically going to be taking place. So as it comes, as we walk you through time, you can actually see this comes ashore sometime tomorrow, and that's going to be complements of bringing all that heavier rain across portions of the Pacific Northwest and Northern California, as we have yet another bona fide pretty good atmospheric river event that's going to be taking place in that region. And that's going to be swinging across, and that's going to be bringing the complements of that snowstorm that's going to be coming across the Dakotas into portions of Minnesota, as well as eventually impacting northern portions of Illinois. Notice the colder, deeper, colder air. It's really kind of bottled up into the north. as of right now. We have another trough, another area of lower pressure that starts to form across the midsection of the country, and that could bring, at the same time, we've got that ridge coming back, right? And that's going to be creating a little bit more instability in these areas down here in portions of Oklahoma and Texas, more unsettled conditions, but they actually could be in the form of some stronger storms, if not some severe storms, especially as we get into your Sunday time frame across portions of the southeast. But notice the really colder stuff, it's still kind of bottled up to the north where the snow line is, but it's not until that trough really starts to dig and starts to move out and starts coming up from the Carolinas and really riding up the East Coast. And as it does, it rapidly deepens. That could be setting the stage for possibly a nor'easter by the time we head into your Monday, Tuesday time frame. Now that cold air has the release button and is able to shift further southbound. And so a bunch of you guys are going to be experiencing those colder anomalies by then, with colder air filtering in on the backside. And that's when I can see areas further to the south actually still might get experiencing a freeze sometime on Monday, if not even Tuesday morning. Could have back-to-back freezes in this region. At the same time, that low pressure rapidly deepens. The latest European actually really bottoms it out down to a 974 millibar. This could be a bona fide nor'easter that by the time we head into your Monday, Tuesday time frame. A lot of ensembles are on it. A lot of the GFS guidance is on it. And yeah, so that's that area, that low pressure. We'll have to watch this, but most of these actually have it slowing down with that negative NAO developing as well, with that blocking feature up there into Greenland, with that cold air penetrating, pushing further south on the backside. So we still got some cold air left. There's no question about it. Let's take a look at the overall surface map. So here's where we stand right now. We've got that little pesky frontal boundary that's just kind of sitting there, right? This is the deep separation of some cold Canadian air. It's all about the springtime further south, and if you're if you've in that colder air, you're definitely feeling it, because temperatures are a good 20, 25, if not almost 30 degrees below average if you're locked into that colder air. But that we'll have to watch that southern flank of some isolated showers and thunderstorms. But to the north, it's all about the snow. So by the time we head into deeper into tomorrow, this is that first initial wave that's going to be coming in, bringing some heavier snows in a good part of Montana through Wyoming, as well as into the Dakotas, far northern branches of Kansas here. And that will be swinging across Minnesota into Minneapolis, where they've been dumped on so far this winter. They'll be adding to those totals, probably another 4-6 inches in that area. The trend of this system, though, it actually has been trending a little bit further south. So instead of these systems trending further north over time, they've been trending further south. And that's the indication of the La Nina finally losing its grip and the Enso neutral coming back into play. And it shifts the overall pattern. So areas that haven't really seen that much snow will finally start, at least somewhat, start getting into the action. So yes, by the time we get into your Thursday night, Friday morning time frame, that heavier snow could be locked over portions of Chicago regions and around the Fort Wayne, Indiana regions, getting into Ohio, places into Milwaukee, back into Detroit. Could get some heavier snowfall from this system. Further to the south, it's all about the instability and the rain showers with that little stall cool front that we'll be dealing with. And there's the atmospheric river event coming back into play for much of California, with heavier rain, if not flooding rain. Some really intense rains could unfold as we get into Thursday, Friday time frame into California. There's no question, as this snowstorm really cranks up across portions of the mid-Atlantic and getting into the Northeast. This one doesn't stall. This one actually keeps more or less progressive and keeps moving out to sea. But the one behind that is not as progressive, and it definitely tends to stall out. So let's take a look at this setup, because we'll have another system forming. We'll have that low pressure forming to the south, and with that, that'll bring the snow line even a little bit further south than the previous one. So now that should drag the snow line further more into Illinois, more or less into central Illinois, central Indiana, or almost all of Ohio there. And then getting into portions of the mid-Atlantic, and then the low pressure center really starts to amplify, digging down off the coast, dragging down into that some of that colder air, and it slows down. We're down to a 989, 982, 975. And of course, as it starts to deepen, it really starts to tighten up those isobars, pulling in that colder air. Finally, that cold air from Canada will hit the release button and head southbound. So that's when areas could actually be experiencing a freeze further south into the Tennessee Valley, into Kentucky, and probably can't roll out northern sections of Mississippi, Alabama into Georgia with a freeze coming up on probably Monday, Monday into Tuesday morning, as that low pressure starts to crank off the coast. Notice how close it gets, and this actually more or less stalls it, feeling the effects of that negative NAO. So this is by far could be the biggest snowstorm of the season. You had to wait to the middle of March to do it, but hey, better late than never. This there's a lot of indications that this could be definitely a big event, because most of the guidance here has this thing really starting to slow down, and it kind of does a little loop-de-loop. It doesn't want to go anywhere. It just kind of sits and spins for a little bit and dumping that heavier snows inland. So this could be definitely a bona fide system to deal with, as this will finally start to move out by the time we head into your Wednesday time frame. But by Wednesday, yes, we'll have another atmospheric river event that's going to be pummeling now portions of Southern California this time. So let's take a look at the GFS, because they've got definitely some similarities here now. That this is the latest GFS run. Again, pulls it pretty much along the same track across portions of the upper Midwest, through the northern sections of the Ohio Valley, through Ohio there into Pennsylvania. This again, the first low pressure more or less is progressive. It pulls away off to sea pretty quickly. The second system, here's the second system coming in, originates over Oklahoma, brings more rain showers over Texas on your Saturday, Sunday time frame. That's when we have to be concerned about some severe storms down here in portions of the southeast. But then the snow is going to be flying big time as this rapidly starts to deepen. This snow could actually pull back into portions of West Virginia, more or less all of Pennsylvania, more of Ohio, more of Pennsylvania. And this again, even the GFS has this thing stalling and coming back inland, right? Look, it does that little loop-de-loop, right? So yes, that's two global models now saying, hey, this thing really starts to rapidly develop off the coast and does a little loop-de-loop and a spin, feeling the effects of that negative NAO by the time we head into your Monday, Tuesday time frame. Let's look at the Canadian. So let's check out the Canadian and how it looks with that first snowstorm coming through, right? So this comes through the upper Midwest, goes through northern sections of Illinois, kind of the same deal, right? Goes through portions of Pennsylvania, goes through the portions of Jersey, New York City might get a dusting or two out of this system. A little bit progressive, pulls out to shore, right? Second system pulls in, goes through portions of the Dakotas again, brings more snow to Minnesota. This one pulls further south. Canadian, same deal, right? They're all in alignment. You got all global models pretty much saying the same thing. Low pressure rapidly deepens off the coast, off the I-95 corridor, bringing the biggest snows of the season in those regions. Stalls, does a little loop-de-loop, right? I mean, it really stalls out, and it kind of does a little loop-de-loop. So all three of them, look at that, all kind of imply the same thing. So they don't really want to go anywhere by the time we head into that Monday, Tuesday time frame. Once it heads offshore, of course, the longer it stays over water, the more moisture is going to be able to pull in, the heavier snow is going to be amplified in those systems. So yeah, it's definitely showing signs that a lot of congruency is coming together for a big event heading into your Monday, Tuesday time frame for the Northeast. Let's look at some of these temperature anomalies going forward, so you can see where definitely the colder air is, and it's been cold predominantly for much of the Pacific Northwest into the western states. We've got these little subtle cool fronts that has that boundaries further south, but more or less all the colder air is kind of locked up to the north. And by the time we head into this weekend, right, you have that trough dip in. You got the subtropical jet pulling in some of those warmer sea surface anomalies, so that amplifies the temperatures down here in the southwest and much of Texas for your weekend rapidly starts to warm up. That's one of the main reasons why some of those could be severe heading into your Saturday, Sunday time frame, while it's nothing but cold conditions that drop across portions of the Tennessee Valley and through the Carolinas and through the mid-Atlantic as we head into your weekend. And that cold air filters and really amplifies as that trough dips, and I think that's again where we could be seeing some freezes in this zone by the time we wake up on Tuesday morning, as the snow is cranking and into the northeast. But eventually, as we continue to expand and look at some of the ensembles, the colder air continues to press, right? We've got blocking in Alaska, we've got blocking over Greenland. The cold air will eventually start to press. Now, this is more or less modified because this is March, especially the deeper we get into March, but still below average temperatures amplify much of the US, even on the ensembles, as we head into next weekend. And beyond that, towards March 20th time frame, it really looks to be on the chillier side for March standards as we get deeper into that third week of March, going forward. So here's your overall precipitation for the next 7 days. So you're really concerned about bona fide atmospheric river events, flooding concerns on top of the snowmelt in California. So we've got multiple inches more coming of rain showers. And then we got all the snowmelt that's going to be compounding on this system, especially in the lower levels below 5,000 feet. All that should start melting in those regions. And then we have the heavier snows. Probably this is more or less snows in the Intermountain West. These systems will be elongated complements of that stalled frontal boundary in this region. So wherever you see the oranges and the reds, that's easily some 2 to 4 inch snow rain amounts into that region. Look at the blend. This is the overall European guidance right now. Yeah, pretty locked over the Intermountain West. Very heavy snows for those mountain regions. There's the snowstorm that comes across for the upper northern and central plains regions, across the upper Midwest. Bona fide snows, pretty good snows for the Illinois area, for the northern Indiana area, through Ohio, portions of Ohio. But really, all depends on this stalling feature. Look at the latest European, really putting those big time snow amounts inland. 18, almost 2 feet of snow inland as well. So this could be a pretty good significant event. Here's the latest GFS, kind of implying the same thing, right? It even pulls the snow line a little bit further south, and they jumped on this first. They caught this, the GFS actually caught this first and had that snow further south rather than pulling these further north. And that's what's been so prevalent this season. These systems start south and then they pull north. This one's was the opposite. It actually started north and it's been trending south. So that is a huge difference of what we've seen. I think that's compliments of what's happening out there in the Pacific with the change in the overall temperature anomalies out there, and those sea surface temperatures just changes the jet stream. All that does is change what's going to be happening inland across the US. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch me in the next update where I protect you before and after the storm.